Hi and welcome to another LRCC Soundbite. This week I want to introduce you to another woman in the Bible. She was one of two that was so important she even had a book named after her. Her name is Ruth. Ruth lived in a land called Moab, near to Israel. But the story starts back in Israel, in a town called Bethlehem. There was a man called Elimelech living in Bethlehem with his wife Naomi. They had two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Now it happened that they had some pretty poor harvests around Bethlehem while they were living. So Elimelech and Naomi decided to move to Moab and see how they got on there. Sadly, Elimelech died after they arrived. But sometime later, when Mahlon and Chilion had grown up, they each married a Moabite woman. One married Orpah and the other Ruth. About another 10 years passed, and sadly both Mahlon and Chilion also died. So Naomi decided to go back home to Bethlehem. Orpah and Ruth both wanted to go with her. But as they were going, Naomi said, No, you should stay here with your people. Find yourselves new husbands. You're still young. Orpah decided she was going to stay, but Ruth was adamant. I'm going to stay with you, Naomi, come what may. So eventually the two of them reached Bethlehem. They didn't have any money and so were living very poor. And when fields were being harvested, it was customary for the workers to leave the bits that fell out of their hands just on the ground for those who didn't have enough to come along and collect. So Ruth went out and started collecting grain in this way to feed herself and Naomi. She found herself working in the field of a man called Boaz. He's described as a good man. He told his workers to leave a bit more behind so that there was more for her to collect. He also made sure that she had water to drink and even invited her to eat with the workers on occasion. When Naomi found out that Ruth was working in Boaz's field, she told her that Boaz was in fact a relative, and according to the custom, their relatives had some responsibility for looking after them. Now, sometime later when the harvest was over, Ruth spoke to Boaz about this, and Boaz decided to do everything he could for her. He had a meeting with Naomi's closest relative, who had first claim and had the greatest responsibility. But he decided not to get involved. So Boaz took it on himself, and he married Ruth and was able to look after her and Naomi properly. It's a lovely story of loyalty and kindness. Ruth is under no obligation to stick with Naomi. But something about their relationship is so special. Not all daughters-in-law get on with their mother-in-law that well. But here there's this really close bond. Later, when Boaz first meets Ruth, he doesn't judge her for being a foreigner. It's certainly true that the Israelites and the Moabites generally didn't get along. They were enemies a lot of the time. Israel worshipped God, the Moabites worshipped various idols. Religiously, very, very different. Their culture and their practices were different. And yet Naomi and Ruth, and in fact Naomi and Orpah, were very close. A story like this of supporting each other through the hard times as well as the good has a lot to say to us about how we are, about how we act and how we treat other people around us. There was one line in this story that struck me most when I was reading it. It said this: Ruth replied, Sir, it's good of you to speak kindly to me and make me feel so welcome. I'm not even one of your servants. Isn't that lovely? Wouldn't it be great if people said things like that about you and me? I suppose that's how I'd like to treat people, and I hope you would too. Certainly gave me something to think about. If you'd like to read the whole story for yourself but haven't got a Bible, if you live near us, do let us know and we'll drop a copy round to you. You can email me or there's a link on our website to request one. We'll be talking about this story later tonight as well. If you're not doing anything later, why not pop round to 44 Lindbergh Road? Any time between 2 and 5. We'll just be having coffee and cake, but after that we'll be having a short informal service where we'll talk about the story of Ruth and who she was and what it might mean for us. If you're here around 5ish, then we can show you where we meet over at Inspire Suffolk. Feel free to bring any questions you've got as well. I hope you have a great week. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.